The richest man held a reverse beauty pageant to select a fit beauty to marry. For this, my best friend not only wanted to gain 200 pounds by taking hormones but also planned to borrow money for plastic surgery. I advised her not to gain weight in a short time as it was too harmful to her body. Moreover, if the plastic surgery fails, her whole life would be ruined. After listening to my advice, she gave up participating in the beauty pageant. Later, my best friend married a good man and lived a happy life after marriage. But on my wedding day, she deceived me and made me drink paraquat. It's all because of you. This bitch. You ruined my chance to marry into a wealthy family. Go to hell. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to the day when my best friend was determined to gain weight. This time, I respect her fate. 1. Lucy. What do you think of my plan to gain 200 pounds within a month? Looking at Vivian in front of me, who was so excited that her eyes were shining, I was a little dazed. Seeing that I didn't speak, Vivian patted my shoulder. What are you in a daze for? I looked around and found myself in the university dormitory 5 years ago. And the excited girl in front of me was my best friend. She was also the murderer who deceived me and made me drink paraquat on my wedding day. At this time in my previous life, the richest man in Beijing held a beauty pageant, saying that he would select the most beautiful fat beauty in the country to marry into his family. In order to marry into a wealthy family, Vivian was determined to gain 200 pounds by taking hormone drugs within a month. She even thought about getting breast augmentation and buttock augmentation to become the so-called fat beauty in the mouth of the richest man. As Vivian's good friend who had been playing with her since junior high school, I naturally patiently advised her to give up. In fact, I knew a lot about the rumors of this richest man. He was a disgusting pervert. Fat beauty was just his preference. What was even more perverted was his behavior in bed. After listening to my words, Vivian gave up this idea. Not long after, the richest man really married the first-place winner of the beauty pageant, a woman who weighed 350 pounds. Vivian didn't have much reaction to this. After graduating from university, she married her boyfriend who she had been dating for 3 years. After marriage, they were happy and never mentioned the beauty pageant again. I had also forgotten about this matter. Until my wedding day, Vivian handed me a glass of water. She said it was blueberry soda. I trusted her so much that without thinking, I took a big gulp. But it was only after I swallowed it that I found the taste was different. Seeing that I had noticed the abnormality, Vivian suddenly burst into wild laughter. Lucy, if it weren't for your obstruction at the beginning, I would have already been the wife of the richest man. It's all because of you. This bitch. You ruined my chance to marry into a wealthy family. Go to hell. Only then did I know that Vivian had always held a grudge against me, and thought that I had disrupted her dream of marrying into a wealthy family. When I gain weight to 200 pounds, I will get breast augmentation and buttock augmentation. The beauty pageant champion must be mine. I came to my senses and saw the unstoppable smile on Vivian's face, holding her weight gain plan. She was so happy that it seemed as if she would marry into a wealthy family and become the richest man's wife tomorrow. Seeing that I had been silent, Vivian came to me and asked me, Lucy, didn't you say you had met this richest man? Do you think he will like me? I had indeed met this richest man. That time, when I was free, I went to a dinner with my dad. The richest man was as thin as a monkey, but he was bald and greasy, unshaven, and there was a bad smell coming from his mouth. When he spoke, he had a patriarchal tone, and liked to look at women's breasts the most. His hands were also not honest and oft, and deliberately touched the waitresses. I had only seen him once and almost vomited. I didn't want to see him a second time in my life. But to be honest, Vivian had a very beautiful bone structure. She belonged to the type that wouldn't be too ugly even if she became fat. If she really gained several hundred pounds, maybe she would really be the type that the richest man liked. But she was very thin herself. For the aesthetic of being white, young, and thin, she often kept her body weight at 80 pounds. She wanted to gain 200 pounds in a month. It was simply irresponsible for her body. In my previous life, I naturally denied it in order to dissuade her. But this time, I propped my head up and smiled at her. Baby, even if you gain 200 pounds with your bone structure, you will still be an extremely beautiful woman. The richest man likes people like you. To hearing my words, Vivian laughed so hard that she was in full bloom. I have ordered 30 takeaways. After eating today, I will definitely gain 5 or 10 pounds tomorrow. Hearing Vivian's words, I was a little surprised. 30 servings. Could her small stomach really finish them? Moreover, Vivian's family was not rich. In Beijing, a place where money is spent like water, her monthly living expenses were only 1.0 yuan. It was the end of the month. How could she have money to order so many takeaways after deducting daily expenses? I asked. Where did you get the money? Vivian waved her phone at me. Didn't we set up an intimate payment before? I looked at the phone and indeed saw the message of a 600 yuan expenditure from the bank card just now. If Vivian hadn't mentioned this matter, I would have almost forgotten. Setting up an intimate payment with Vivian was done by her using my phone. At that time, we had just entered university. Vivian spent all her monthly living expenses of 1.0 yuan on buying some things for herself. In the middle of the night, she cried and told me that her life was miserable. I couldn't bear to see Vivian suffer, so I gave her money. From then on, Vivian would ask me for money every month. But it was only 1,000 or 2,000 yuan. I didn't pay much attention. Until a few months later, Vivian took advantage of the time when I was taking a shower and used my phone to set up an intimate payment for herself. Later, when I found out about this, I went to ask Vivian. Vivian said that I was drunk last time and insisted on setting it up for her. I had known Vivian for 6 years and knew that she was lying. But at that time, I was so stupid that I actually tacitly consented because I felt sorry for Vivian. From then on, all of Vivian's expenses were paid by me. I thought I was spending money for my good friend, so I didn't care. I just didn't expect that Vivian was the one who would stab me in the back the most. Even the money she used to buy paraquat was paid with my intimate payment. I came to my senses and cancelled the intimate payment with Vivian on my phone. I turned off the intimate payment. From now on, you spend your own money. Hearing my words, Vivian immediately stopped smiling. The whole person looked at me with a resentful expression. But soon, she changed her attitude, came to me, and blinked pitifully. Lucy, are you so willing to give up? We are good friends. I silently rolled my eyes. It turned out that Vivian's understanding of a good friend was spending a good friend's money and buying paraquat to give to a good friend to drink. 3. This is not a good friend. This is an enemy friend. Seeing that I didn't speak, Vivian was a little angry. Why are you so stingy now? At worst, just consider it as a loan from you. I will definitely pay you back after I marry into a wealthy family. I looked up at Vivian and without hesitation, directly refused. No, I have money, but I'm not stupid. Vivian's expression became even uglier. Lucy, don't you think that after I marry the richest man, I will be richer than you? Are you jealous of me? I sneered. Vivian was really a person who lacked a string in her brain and a hole in her heart. I didn't pay any attention to Vivian anymore and turned back to my desk. At this time point, it was time to apply for an exchange student. In my previous life, because of Vivian's matter, I didn't submit in time and missed the exchange quota. But she secretly submitted on my behalf and went to be an exchange student at a foreign university instead of me. At that time, she cried and said that she didn't mean it. I believed her words. But now it seems that all of this was her doing. Seeing that I didn't pay attention to her, Vivian snorted. If you don't give it to me, forget it. I have my ways. Saying that, she walked to her desk and didn't know what she was doing. I finished writing the materials for the exchange student and asked my dad to give me a house near the school. I planned to move out and live there. After finishing everything, I was about to take a shower and go to bed. But as soon as I stood up, Vivian excitedly came to me. She pointed her phone at me. I saw the message on the phone. Your Alipay account received 100 yuan. Seeing that I didn't speak, Vivian looked at me smugly. I'm amazing, right? I can get money without you. The only way to get money so quickly. I could only think of borrowing. Now the interest rates of loans are extremely high. Vivian was actually willing to borrow money in order to gain weight. This kind of person will probably be deceived into buying health products when she is old. For Vivian's takeaways arrived quickly. 30 takeaways were all high-calorie foods. I still had the disgusting feeling of being burned by pesticides in my mouth. When I smelled these greasy foods, I wanted to vomit. But Vivian excitedly filled the entire dormitory with food. My family built a new teaching building for the school. So the school made an exception and arranged a single dormitory for me. Vivian wanted to accompany me. So I let her live with me. This dormitory was very large and there were only 2 of us. After Vivian filled the dormitory with food, she took out her phone and put it on a live streaming stand. She liked to post various borderline videos of herself online. It was just that she wasn't popular and couldn't earn money. Everyone, welcome to Vivian's live streaming room. Today, Vivian signed up for the beauty pageant held by the richest man. She wants to gain 200 pounds within a month. If you are interested, click the icon see if Vivian can win the championship. I only turned around when I heard Vivian's voice and saw that she had started live streaming. The richest man just held this event today. In the evening, Vivian started live streaming to gain weight. It was estimated that there would be a lot of traffic. I registered a secondary account. Found Vivian's account. Clicked into the live streaming room. And indeed saw tens of thousands of viewers on it. And the number was growing very quickly. It was estimated that it would reach 100 in a while. Vivian picked up a portion of fried chicken. She opened her mouth wide and stuffed a chicken leg into her mouth. Then she sucked the meat off the bone with her mouth. She didn't swallow it directly. Instead, she continued to suck the second and third chicken legs with her mouth full of meat. Vivian's movements were very exaggerated. Sauce was also all over her mouth. When she had stuffed all the meat from the chicken legs into her mouth, she began to chew. But her mouth was not big. When she chewed, you could see the meat in her mouth. After seeing this scene, I frowned. Vivian quickly finished eating this portion of fried chicken. At the same time, she opened her mouth full of sauce and still had some meat stuck between her teeth. Happily, she said, "Thank you, King Feng, for sending a hot air balloon. Next, Vivian will eat this bowl of extremely spicy and stinky Liaoxiao River Snails rice noodles." Vivian said as she picked up the bowl of Liaoxiao River Snails rice noodles. But she soon stopped. Some family members want to see Vivian eat river snails rice noodles mixed with durian. Okay, then Vivian will meet everyone's needs. Eating the 2 together has extremely high calories. I will definitely gain 5 pounds tomorrow. Vivian took out a larger bowl and crushed the durian flesh with her bare hands, and threw it into the soup of the river snails rice noodles. The 2 smells mixed together and rushed straight to the top of my head. The dormitory was like someone had filled it with poop. The kind that had been constipated for several days. I really couldn't stand it anymore and rushed out of the dormitory directly. But when I walked out of the dormitory, I saw Vivian's mouth almost reaching her temples. "Welcome Mr. Jason, the richest man, to my live streaming room 5. I looked at my phone and indeed found that the disgusting richest man, Jason, had entered the live streaming room. Because of Jason's arrival, the live streaming room had even more traffic and soon reached the top. Vivian also ate the river snails rice noodles mixed with durian even more vigorously. Looking at this scene, I frowned tightly. After eating this bowl of river snails rice noodles, she was already so full that she sat there as if she would vomit at any moment. The bullet comments immediately taunted Vivian for not being able to handle it. But just when the bullet comments were booing, Jason consecutively sent several yachts, immediately making Vivian beam with joy. "Thank you, Big Brother at the top of the list. 4 sending yachts. Next. I will eat this big strawberry cake. Vivian quickly held the 6-inch cake and buried her entire face in it, frantically gnawing on the cake. Her movements were particularly exaggerated. When she raised her head again, her entire face was covered with cream. Cream and the oil soup from the river snail's rice noodles were all on Vivian's face, making her look particularly ridiculous. Before she finished eating the cream cake, she picked up a bowl of pork belly that seemed to be all fat. Those pieces of pork belly didn't know how they were made. The white fat had been dyed black. Vivian picked up a piece of fat and put it in her mouth, as if eating some delicious food from heaven. But she didn't swallow it. Instead, she put all the fat into her mouth. Then she took another bite of the cream cake and chewed and swallowed them together. I endure with great effort my discomfort and closed the live streaming. 6 From then on, Vivian would live stream every day, eating all kinds of high-calorie foods with exaggerated movements. I was not interested in watching her live stream either. I just occasionally heard classmates talk about it. Without Vivian's meddling, my exchange student quota was quickly approved. As soon as this semester ended, I flew abroad and participated in school experimental projects while traveling. The 1-year exchange time passed in the blink of an eye. Soon I ended the exchange and returned to Beijing. Because I had to submit some materials, I rushed to the school before the teacher got off work as soon as I got off the plane. But as soon as I arrived at the school, I saw a very flamboyant red Porsche parked at the school gate. Many people were watching on the side. I just thought this Porsche looked familiar, so I took a few more glances. But this glance was important. Soon a very fat woman got out of the car. Her entire body was stuck in the car door because she was a bit bloated. At this time, the woman was wearing a strapless Alterhards dress. It was so tight that it highlighted all the flesh on her body. Because of this, her flesh was squeezed into various shapes by the car door, like lumps of clay. I originally wanted to look away, but the woman suddenly turned her face sideways. It looked a bit familiar. After thinking for a while, I suddenly realized the woman in front of me was Vivian. Her face was painted with a very thick and exaggerated makeup. Her entire facial features were squeezed together because of the transverse flesh. But she had also had hyaluronic acid injections. Her chin seemed to exist independently, and was squeezed on her face. And her originally straight nose seemed to have turned into a hooked nose because of a failed plastic surgery. Her mouth had also had lip augmentation, but it was very conspicuous on her entire face. After looking carefully, I found that she seemed to have turned her ears into all ears. A very useless and ugly plastic surgery project. Now Vivian was completely different from the girl who weighed 80 pounds in my memory. She was even completely like a different person. After countless operations, Vivian finally squeezed herself out. Now I could see this person completely. And soon a man also got out of the driver's seat. It was Jason, the richest man. He was still so thin, like a monkey that had become a spirit. His hair was getting more and more bald. His hairline had almost moved to the Atlantic Ocean. His small eyes like a mouse were rolling around. In order to appear cultured, Jason also wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. But it made him look even more wretched. Standing together, these two people really had a great contrast. Looking at Vivian getting what she wanted, I had no reaction and directly walked into the school. But Vivian saw me. She rushed in front of me and blocked my way. Lucy. Long time no see. 7 Jason walked to Vivian's side and put one hand on Vivian's waist. Vivian should have had local liposuction and shaping. Clearly, her whole body was full of fat. But unexpectedly she had large breasts, a thin waist, and a perky butt. It looked very uncoordinated. Jason looked me up and down with a wretched expression. Oh, isn't this that little girl? I hated this kind of look and turned to leave. But Vivian still took 2 steps forward and blocked me. Lucy, I am the first place in the beauty pageant. I will marry Jason soon. I looked at Vivian. Her face, which was completely unrecognizable after plastic surgery, was full of pride. Then congratulations? Hearing me say congratulations, Vivian lowered her head and kissed Jason in front of me again and left, holding his hand. I looked at Vivian's buttocks that were uneven due to a failed buttock augmentation, and were shaking up and down as she walked. I shuddered. After submitting the materials, I went home. It was summer vacation now. It was very hot outside. I stayed at home and didn't go out much. Until one day, Vivian came to my house. I looked at her. Her face seemed a bit deformed because the prosthesis had not fused. And her body was a bit fatter than when I saw her at school before. But it wasn't just simply being fat. Instead, the flesh was a bit loose, as if hanging on her body, coupled with the fact that she was still wearing tight clothes all the time, making her whole person very strange. As soon as Vivian saw me, she got straight to the point. "Lucy, are you financially comfortable recently? Lend me some money. I want to go for shaping and also have bone shortening." Jason said I am too tall. Vivian was 1.65 meters tall. Actually, it wasn't particularly tall, but just because of Jason's one sentence, she actually wanted to have bone shortening. Moreover, I had only heard of height increase surgery. As for bone shortening to become shorter, I really hadn't heard of it. Seeing that I didn't speak, Vivian quickly pleaded. "Jason promised me that as long as I am below 1.6 meters, he will marry me. When I become the wife of the richest man, I will definitely pay you back several times." I looked at Vivian. Because her entire face was bloated and fat, her originally big eyes had become smaller. Now, she was looking at me with an eager expression, hoping that I would agree. Vivian was really a bit crazy. But I refused without hesitation. "I won't lend it to you." Vivian's expression immediately became ugly. "Lucy, we have known each other for 6 or 7 years. Are you unwilling to help me with this small favor? You are too selfish." In the past, I had helped her with everything. What did I get in return? I was killed by her own hands. I didn't pay attention to Vivian. Instead, I walked to the table in the living room, picked up the phone, and directly called the security guard. "Someone broke into my house without permission. Please come over." Seeing that I didn't care about our previous friendship at all, Vivian was so angry that she pointed at me and cursed a long string. Finally, she ran away before the security guards arrived. At the end of summer vacation, I went back to school for classes as usual. Vivian came in before class. As soon as she entered, she attracted the attention of many people. Vivian was even fatter than when she came to my house before. At least she had gained another 30 or 40 pounds. I remembered that a friend told me that she revealed in her live streaming room that she weighed 250 pounds. Then now, it must be almost 300 pounds. But she still wore a tight dress as always. That tight dress couldn't cover her constantly expanding chest due to breast augmentation, coupled with the fact that it was also very difficult for her to buy a suitable bra. Her entire chest was tottering and about to fall down. Some girls couldn't bear to look anymore and quickly looked away. On the contrary, the boys were all beyond onlookers-like. Some even took out their phones and were ready to secretly take pictures. Vivian didn't care about other people's gazes at all. She walked straight to the back position and sat down. My gaze was always on Vivian's feet. Her feet were wrapped in bandages, as if she was injured. I was too familiar with Vivian. In this state, she was obviously shorter than before. I guessed that she must have had bone reduction surgery. People like Jason would definitely not give Vivian money. The money Vivian earned from live streaming was probably squandered by herself. If she wanted to get a large sum of money in a short time to have plastic surgery, then there was only borrowing. But borrowing was like a bottomless pit and could never be repaid. Sure enough, something happened soon. 9 that day. I went home after finishing class as usual, but was blocked by a black van. Two rough-looking men got out of the car and, without saying a word, blocked me. "Are you called Lucy?" one of them asked in a deep and terrifying voice. I became vigilant and didn't respond. I just asked, "What do you want?" The leader spat. Do you know Vivian? That bitch deceived me. She actually borrowed usurious loans using your ID card. Now I can't contact her. You pay back the money for her. Using my ID card? My mind suddenly went blank. Since I was reborn, I have stayed away from Vivian. I definitely wouldn't let her take my ID card. The only possibility is that she took my ID card a long time ago. Now that I think about it, I remember. When I was a sophomore, I did lose my ID card once. It was after traveling with Vivian. At that time, I thought it was lost in a different place and didn't pay much attention. Now it seems that Vivian probably stole my ID card at that time and kept it for use. I asked, "How much did Vivian borrow from you?" That person snorted coldly and stretched out two fingers. 2 million. I asked again, "How much interest has rolled over?" That person stretched out 5 fingers. Including principal and interest. It's 5 million. I found it really ridiculous. Vivian might not even be able to take out 20,000. She actually had the guts to borrow 2 million. Now the interest has rolled over and reached 5 million. She couldn't pay it off even if she sold everything. I could pay it off. But how could I help this ungrateful person? I don't care about Vivian's matter. She stole my ID card to borrow money. That's her crime. I can't pay back the money for her. I also observed for a while. They didn't kidnap me. Which means they are not the kind of people who kill and set fires. They are just ordinary usurers. So they won't pose a threat to me. The leader was furious. "If you don't pay back the money, I will send this that Vivian gave me to your relatives and friends." Saying that, he took out his phone and found a video and aimed it at me. I took a look. It was a nude photo. The face is mine, but the body is not. Vivian made an AI face swap. She wants to make me socially dead. It's really disgusting, like a dog skin plaster that sticks and can't be shaken off. But unfortunately, I wasn't scared. I crossed my arms and looked at them without the slightest fear. "You want to use this AI face swap to threaten me? Dare you send it? If you send it, I can arrest you for insult. By the way, Vivian should have told you that I am very rich. You can check the legal department of Yongli Group online. As long as you dare to send it, I guarantee that you will never get out of prison in your life." As I said, I pointed to the bodyguard team walking over behind me. "I forgot to tell you. My bodyguards are here." The 2 people immediately turned around and looked at several men in black walking over. As expected, they backed off. The younger one poked the leader's back. "Boss, this girl doesn't seem to be lying. Did we fall into Vivian's trap?" The leader glared back at the younger one and didn't speak. The bodyguards walked up to me. Just as they were about to drive these people away, I stopped them. Through the gaps between the bodies of several bodyguards, I looked at these 2 usurers and said, "Vivian's current boyfriend is Jason, the richest man in Beijing. He doesn't lack your 5 million. Since we are all looking for Vivian, we can help each other. Jason's reputation is stronger than mine, coupled with the fact that Vivian is now famous in Beijing. When these people see that threatening me doesn't work, they will definitely go to Jason to ask for money." The 2 people still wanted to say something, but when they saw these bodyguards, they were so scared that they couldn't say a word and ran away in a hurry. I looked at the several bodyguards in front of me. These people were asked for by me from my dad before. Since Vivian came to my house to find me last time, I felt that she would cause something else. Maybe because I died once. Now I cherish my life extremely. So having bodyguards watching is because I am really afraid of death. I took out my phone and called Vivian. There was no answer on the other end. But soon, the call was dialed back. I answered the call. Just as I was about to speak, I heard a voice that didn't belong to Vivian coming from the other end. "Hello. Are you Miss Vivian's friend? She is currently undergoing dimple formation and breast augmentation surgery. But the current situation is not optimistic. Please be prepared at any time. Vivian is really crazy. Her chest is already like 2 basketballs hanging in front of her chest. And she still wants to have surgery. I thought for a while and only said for words, I know. Of course I have to be prepared. Prepared to give Vivian a surprise. 10. I went to the plastic surgery hospital. This is a very famous plastic surgery hospital. I have also heard of it. The people they serve here are all celebrities or rich people. To have plastic surgery here, you have to verify your assets first. Vivian coming here really cost a lot. No wonder she borrowed $2 million at once. The nurse seemed to know me. As soon as she saw me, she greeted me with a smile. Miss Lucy. Right? Miss Vivian's situation is not optimistic. We must use expensive drugs to reduce her rejection. But currently Miss Vivian still owes us $500,000. I asked in reply, do you mean that I should pay this $500,000? This Vivian is really interesting. Does she think of me as a stupid and rich cash machine? Or does she think that I will soften my heart, now that I feel sorry for her? A nurse quickly said, it's just that if there is no medical expense now, we may terminate the repair. Any side effects that occur later have nothing to do with our hospital. I sat on the chair and said calmly, then you can terminate it. Or let Vivian pay $50,000 herself. But now she still owes $5 million. I'm afraid she really can't afford this $50,000. The nurse seemed to be surprised that I was so cold-blooded. She stood there stunned for a moment before turning around and leaving to discuss countermeasures with others. I sat patiently on the chair in the hospital and waited. After about half an hour, Vivian was pushed out. Her face and body were all wrapped in adhesive tape and looked like a mummy. The hospital bed could no longer hold her, so the guardrails on both sides were removed. The hospital bed that could originally be pushed by 2 nurses now required 8 people. Even so, it was still very difficult to push. Even lying down, I could see those 2 things on Vivian's chest. They were much bigger than before. Vivian was still in the anesthesia period. But she was not under general anesthesia. So she still had some consciousness at this time. Her exposed pair of eyes stared at me intently, full of hatred. But unfortunately, this couldn't cause any substantial harm to me. I sat outside the corridor and didn't go in until Vivian's anesthesia wore off. Vivian was taking off the gauze. Although I was prepared, when Vivian took off the gauze, I still felt a little disgusted. Her face was already piled up with too much flesh, squeezing her entire facial features together. Now she has also had dimple formation. Because of improper filling, there is a depression about the size of a ping pong ball on the right side of her face, and her lower eyelids have also been done. But because of asymmetry, there is a lot more white on the left side. As for the plump lips and elf ears, they have all been deformed due to secondary plastic surgery. Vivian's face is ruined. Not only that, when the gauze on Vivian's body was removed, I also saw that she had a tattoo with pigeon blood on her waist. There were 4 words. Stuffon in doubt. Now because there is no fever, it is not so obvious. Not to mention the metaphor of these 4 words safe and in doubt. Just that pigeon blood tattoo is very easy to get infected. After all the gauze on Vivian's body was removed, she glared at me viciously. Lucy, are you just going to watch me die and not help? I am your best friend. If it weren't for me saving you back then, you would have died long ago. Now you won't even give me $5 million. I knew Vivian would use that incident to morally kidnap me. When I was a child, Vivian and I went to the seaside to play, and almost fell into a fault. It was Vivian who pulled me and dragged me to the shore. But I almost forgot. If it weren't for Vivian running away from home, I would never have gone to the seaside to find her. It was even more impossible for me to almost fall into the fault for her. So it is impossible for Vivian to morally kidnap me with this matter. I sneered. Vivian, how could you be so stupid as to use my ID card to borrow money and make that AI face-swapped nude photo to threaten me? Don't you really think that I will obediently help you pay off the loan? I walked to Vivian's side. Put the mirror in front of her. Look at you like this. Can you still recognize yourself? Vivian raised her hand and knocked down the mirror. She raised her eyes to look at me, as if looking at something extremely evil. Lucy, I especially hate your appearance. I have hated it since I was a child. You were born in Rome and have everything. But what about me? I lost my parents since I was a child. Even eating was a problem. Isn't your so-called help just like giving alms to kittens and puppies? So what if I deliberately stole your ID card to borrow money? Can you kill me? Now it is a society ruled by law. Of course I can't kill her. Moreover, I have been reborn with great difficulty. I don't plan to go to jail for her. I took a step back and looked outside the door. Vivian has admitted it. Now there is enough evidence to prove it. Right? Hearing my words, Vivian hurriedly looked outside the door. Soon a group of policemen walked in. They arrested Vivian in 2 or 3 steps. Vivian, you are suspected of multiple crimes such as theft and violating others' privacy and portrait rights. Now you are arrested. 71 Vivian was taken from the plastic surgery hospital to the police station by the police before she had fully recovered. But within less than a month, she was released. It was because of Jason's relationship. I was not surprised by this result. Nor was I angry. Vivian thought that Jason saving her gave her hope. But what if it was the next hell? 12 since then. I haven't seen Vivian for a long time. Until I graduated from senior year. I saw Vivian again at a dinner party. At first, I didn't know that Jason would also come to this dinner party. I didn't even know that Jason actually brought Vivian. My partner saw that I had been staring at Vivian. He took a glass of red wine and walked up to me and handed me the glass. Do you know the woman next to Jason? I took my gaze away from Vivian and turned to look at Zach. I don't know. What's wrong? Zach is a senior I met during my exchange period. I found him at the beginning of my entrepreneurship. Our entrepreneurial concepts are very consistent. So there has been no problem since we started our business. Do you know the club established by Jason? I shook my head. I didn't know much about Jason and Vivian's affairs. Zach only told me when he saw that I didn't know. It turned out that Vivian was not the only one poisoned by this beauty pageant back then. At least 20 girls suffered irreversible damage due to rapid weight gain and plastic surgery in a short period of time. Of course, they would go to Jason for trouble. Jason naturally had a way to solve it. His lawyer took out the agreement signed by these girls when they signed up for the beauty pageant. It was clearly stated on it that Jason only provided this opportunity. He was not legally responsible for any preparations made by the girls. When the girls were on the verge of collapse, Jason stood up like a savior. He said that as long as the girls worked in his club, they could get high remuneration. Not only would they have no worries about food and clothing, but they could also live a prosperous life for the rest of their lives. Those who could participate in the beauty pageant originally wanted to marry into a wealthy family. Hearing Jason's big promise, of course they happily agreed. But the club that Jason mentioned was just a new black industry chain. The members in the club are people who have the same hobbies as him. It is obvious how those girls get money. In this club, the more you work, the more you get. So the richest one is Vivian. She often follows Jason and accompanies him to some occasions. After listening to Zach's words, I looked up at Vivian. She was following Jason and pouring tea and water for him. Soon I took my gaze away. This is the path Vivian chose. She should bear it herself. The dinner party was a bit boring. After greeting Zach, I was about to leave. But someone in the crowd behind me screamed. Immediately after that, there was a commotion. I looked back and just saw Jason fall to the ground. His chest was constantly bleeding. And Vivian stood in front with her head down, holding a dripping dagger in her hand. She seemed to feel me looking at her and raised her head to look at me. Vivian's eyes were bloodshot. It seemed that she had killed so much that her eyes were red. She actually rushed towards me with a knife. I reacted first and pushed over the wine table next to me. Table wherein wine blocked Vivian's way. Lucy, it's you who watched me die, and didn't help. It's you who made me become this inhuman and ghostly appearance. You and Jason are equally damn it. Go to hell. Vivian is really interesting. In my previous life, I advised her. But in the end she wanted to kill me. In this life, I didn't persuade her. But she still wants to kill me. Unfortunately, She won't be able to kill me this time. Vivian still wanted to rush over, but was controlled by the bodyguards who arrived. Soon the police arrived. Vivian killed someone in public. She couldn't escape this time. 13. Because the evidence was conclusive, Vivian was quickly sentenced to death. It is worth mentioning that the members of the club were also sentenced at the same time. That plastic surgery institution was also closed down because it illegally carried out anti-human projects. 14. On the day of her execution, the rain that had been falling for several days finally stopped. When I landed, I just saw a rainbow in the sky. The friend next to me was a little excited. A rainbow. It seems that our journey this time will be very smooth. I smiled and nodded. Not just this journey. My future will also be smooth.